for Community Comment here on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. WBEV News Director Kevin Haugen is in the Slumberland and Daily Dodge TV studios with the Mayville Mayor.
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon. Welcome into today's Community Comment. Our guest on the program this afternoon is the Mayor of Mayville, Rob Boelk. Mayor, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to join us on the program and talk everything that's happening in the city of Mayville.
Well, thanks for having me, Kevin. It's always nice to come over to Beaver Dam and WBV and talk about what's going on in the city of Mayville.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also in your many long list of community service opportunities and the work that you do, you're also District 14 board member on the Dodge County Board representing the Mayville area. I've done that now, I want to say since 2020, I think was when that you were 2020, I think was when you were elected in. So split your time between city responsibilities and county responsibilities. So we do appreciate the mayor giving up some of his time to join us here on Community Comment this afternoon. But before we get into some of the topics that we want to discuss about on the program today, maybe just give a little bit of background, Mayor, of your time in civic responsibility. You spent some time as mayor. You left that position in Mayville for a little bit of time, but came back. But just give our listeners a little bit of detail about what has drawn you into that civic role and serving as mayor. You spent some time also as a alderperson on the Mayville Common Council, but just sort of give us a background of what that has been like for Rob Boelk.
Yeah, and back in 2013, the alderman at the time in my ward decided not to run, and I decided that he thought I'd be a good fit, so I decided to run. And then in 2016, I became mayor of Mayville, and then I left 6 years later. I didn't seek re-election because I want to give other people an opportunity to see what they could do and what they can showcase for the city. That didn't turn out that well, so I'm back. So,
yeah, was first elected. I think we discussed before we got on air around 2016, and then I was reelected, and then stepped aside in 2020, and now reelected this past spring to another 2-year term. And is it too early to go on any records to say that you'll look again at running in the next election, or you're still taking it month by month, year by year, and we'll see how you feel come 2026?
Well, at this point, I'm just taking it month by month because there's a lot of stuff at Mayville that's got to get straightened away before I could even decide to step back. So.
Yeah, it kind of alludes to some of the stuff we want to talk about this afternoon on the program. One of which is a key component for why you wanted to run in the spring election, and that was to sort of calm the storm that had arisen at City Hall. With a lot of staff had departed, there were departures with the city council. It had been sort of in flux there for a good amount of time, but over the last couple of weeks, Mayor, we've seen press releases, we've seen updates from council meetings that has been, at least at this point, mostly resolved. It seems like there's now a fully round-out staff and a fully round-out council there in Mayville.
Yeah, after 22 months, I can honestly say right now, we have a full staff at City Hall, we have a full city council, and we have full commissions, and boards. That was one of my priorities going into this election. The first 90 to 120 days, I wanted to achieve that goal, and I have. So now we're working on the 2025 budget process to make it more, to go back to the way it was, which is more fiscally sound.
Fantastic. Now, one of the key hires there in the city had been, or at least the focus had been for some time, really, it's been discussed, but not much traction had been made in the last couple of months and years, was looking at going towards a city administrator form of government there in Mayville. I believe the position of mayor was part-time. Is that true there in Mayville?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, a part-time mayor position. So there had been a lot of discussions about bringing in a city administrator. That was something that I know you had talked about quite extensively before being elected to that position. But that has finally also now come to fruition. There is a city administrator there in Mayville. And how do you feel like things have gone now that role has been filled and created, and now moving forward with that?
Yeah, I think that that was one of my, I won't say a condition to me coming back, but it was a big reason why I wanted to come back, to get a city administrator hired. I've wanted a city administrator for probably after my first term, just for the fact that I have a full-time job, and I was putting in close to 20 hours a week doing the job, and it was just too much. So you need someone there full-time run the city day-to-day operations. So, the first 90 days now, it's been good because I have a broad history of what's going on at the city and why we do things a certain way. And I compliment her, and she compliments me, because a lot of things I don't know, she knows, and things that she doesn't understand or know, I know. Mm-hmm. And so it's been working out very well, and I'm very pleased at how things are transpiring.
And what's the name of the city administrator again?
Stephanie Justman.
Stephanie Justman. That's right. And it sort of speak to, you mentioned a little bit, just kind of the filling in of the gaps of having a city administrator there with, a lot of times the mayor does have other responsibilities and a full-time job elsewhere that pulls them in other directions, and it's just a lot to handle for one person. What are just some of the other benefits of having that city administrator there who can be on the ground day to day, who can meet with city staff and have that representation there, and have that person who can work closely with those people in City Hall there to make sure things run smoothly and operate at an efficient manner?
Yeah, it's imperative for the city, just for the fact, because when all of our office staff left, you don't get that experience back. So we need to hire someone that had experience, and she comes knowledge of a treasurer's experience along with clerk's experience. And so now every bill that comes through the front door, she can review and make sure we're not overpaying people, make sure that the invoices that were received are actually true invoices. And we've been finding out a lot of mistakes and errors have been made, and we're correcting them as we speak. So
now, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor. I believe that was there any sort of official adoption of any ordinances that needed to be changed or resolutions to switch from any sort of form of governments that had transitioned there in Mayville to move into that city administrative direction that needed to take place before hiring somebody on board there?
No, and it's a very simple explanation, is that the mayor is still running the city. The administrator reports to the mayor. It's not where the administrator is running the entire city, even though that I gave her the ability to do that. She still does report to the mayor, but there will be an ordinance coming up that we will have. It will basically be a city administrator position that will be put in an ordinance.
Fantastic. Now, another key position that had been vacant for a little bit of time, not as much, or as really not at all, since the city administrator was just recently created, but another key position that was important to fill there in the city of Mayville was a city clerk's position. There was a time where the city clerk had resigned and then voiced interest in returning and then left again, but I believe that position now is established in place, and I believe Anastasia Gonstead, who now fills that position, is in place, and things again are moving forward in the right direction there as well.
Right. She left, went to another municipality, and now she came back, which we're glad we can acquire Anastasia. She's a great clerk. She's great for the city of Mayville, and I have a lot of respect for her. So. People don't really understand that when you run a municipality, you can run without a lot of key positions, but you cannot run without a city clerk. The city clerk is what keeps the mayor and the city council out of harm's way, and just does a lot of the functions, as a government. Yeah. So that's a key position.
Yeah, and quickly looking here before moving on to a different topic, the city council, that had been also a key gap there in terms of people stepping aside, people resigning, people being asked to step aside in some cases, but that now is up to full strength, I believe, correct? And that is back at 100%. And just maybe speak to the importance of having a council that is at full strength and can operate under any capacity that it's required to under state law.
Right. So the city of Mayville has 6 aldermen, and we need 4 to have a quorum. Well, if you can't fill a position, you better hope you can have everyone show up at the meeting, or you won't have a quorum, and you can't function as a government or a government body. So, yeah, we have all 6 alderman positions finally filled. And I believe, to me, I work with everybody, so I don't know. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm going to work with you, and if you got something that you want to bring forward, I'll work with you to get it to where you need it to be. And that's pretty much my MO from day one. I'm willing to work with anybody as a mayor and council members, even a county board supervisor, to get things done for the betterment of the people of Mayville and for Dodge County.
And that's really what it's all about, is representing the people of Mayville and the public there, and making sure that their voices are heard too during meetings and their representation. So I'm sure that everyone in Mayville was pleased to see that council was back at full strength, and things can start moving in the right direction there. Again, we are chatting with Mayville Mayor Rob Boelk here on Community Comment. We're also streaming on Daily Dodge TV if you wanted to check us out there as well. And another topic that we want to hit on is kind of a meaty one to get into, and we'll try not to get too buried into the weeds on this topic, but it's been another hot button issue there in Mayville for several years here, and that's an ongoing audit that has been undertaken there in Mayville. And I believe you had mentioned, Mayor, that just this past week that report was finally presented to the council, that you guys could finally see it and review it in its full form.
Yeah, last night Baker Tilly did the audit for 2023, and all the numbers came back, and so we reviewed them beforehand and before the presentation. There's some serious concerns. There was a lot of money that was spent that was overrun, so we're going to have to come up with a plan to make that money up, and along with one of the questions I was asked last night is that people keep asking me about the previous administrator kept talking about the $700,000 that was missing. Well, the auditors said there is no money missing. They don't even know how they even came up with the $700,000 figure. As far as I'm concerned, it could have been $7 million or $70 million. It just was a number that was put out there, and there's no explanation why. I mean, I can speculate that because they did such overruns that they're trying to justify why it was overrun as much as they were, and they maybe concocted a story that money was missing.
And so just to sort of quickly recap that, so it had been widely reported that there was $700,000 that were misplaced or that could not be accounted for, which really was a big trigger of why an audit was being done in the first place. And through that audit, Baker Tilly came back and said that they could not find any record or any indication that this amount of money was indeed missing and was misplaced, so that they could not collaborate what was being said by the prior administration.
Right. They had the money was all accounted for. Just unfortunate that the city of Mayville, the taxpayers, spent around $90,000 doing this audit with attorney fees, and it didn't transpire to anything. Yeah. It's a shame because we could use that $90,000 for a lot of other things.
Mayor, you also mentioned overspending and looking at trying to reel in expenditures and finances there. And I know during your tenure, this I believe started before you got into the mayoral position there, but there had been an ongoing initiative in Mayville to reel in those finances. I can't remember the name of the
9-year plan.
The 9-year plan, correct? Yes. So, and it saw a lot of success when that plan was in place. And is that something that you see needing to happen again in order to get everything back where it needs to be, or is that something that you feel is not necessary? Is it too early in the process to know for sure?
I don't think we'll have to put a 9-year plan, but we are going to have to put a plan together to try to figure out where we're going to have some of these overruns and how we're going to make up the money. So yeah, there will be some kind of financial plan, but not the extent that we had, on the 9-year plan. The 9-year plan was basically we had over $2 million deficit. It's not debt where you have a debt. This is deficit where we actually had to tell employees not to cash their checks. That's pretty bad. And so we came up with this 9-year plan that we were going to set aside $365,000 every year for 9 years to make up that amount, and to have $800,000 reserve in the bank. And we did accomplish that under my tenure and a bunch of other mayors' tenures and council tenures. So it's actually quite astonishing because, every 2 years you have a cycle of elected officials or mayors, and to have everyone to collaborate to make sure that this plan came to tuition is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I think it speaks to how important it is to have sort of continuity between administrations and working relationships there, that if somebody does decide to step down, or as things tend to as in life, when people reach a certain age, they want to retire or step aside and have new people come in, that having everyone on that same page is key, and it's still incredible that.
And I'll just touch base on this because this just happened last night. with the auditors is that when I was mayor, we put away $20,000 for FEMA funds because most people don't understand that FEMA will pay money if it's considered a disaster area. But part of the problem is you have to declare disaster ahead of time. So if we think their levees or dams are going to break, we'd call it emergency. And then we're responsible to pay a portion of that to FEMA, which is at that time was $335 per person. So that came out to like $20,000. Well, no one even understood this $20,000, why it was sitting there as FEMA funds, and no one understood except for me because we put it together, and I told them, and then of course that makes sense. But that's the problem when you have all this turnover in City Hall and all this turmoil in city government. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah, it sort of puts roadblocks in place in order for things to keep on, and especially it's really important for city government for things to keep moving in a streamlined manner. Having roadblocks and red tape in the way can just cause those hiccups to happen and cause larger issues to come up that don't necessarily need to. But it seems though that through previous efforts, it seems like the ship was able to be righted, and it seems like there is hope there that again that the ship can right itself, that the financial position can help improve itself there in Mayville.
Yeah, and it will. I mean, we hired a new city treasurer now, and she was the utility clerk, and she's doing a wonderful job, Nicole DeBaker. And then we also went out and hired a financial consultant, and he's helping the city out where we need to be as well. And that's just an extra set of eyes and set of resources. And we plan on utilizing that firm for a while yet.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, maybe a quick side note here while we're talking about the audit report with Mayville Mayor Rob Boelk. A lot of rain, a lot of storms happened in the area the last couple of weeks. How had Mayville handled a lot of that weather? Has there been issues with flooding, localized flooding there in the city, or have things been pretty okay there in the city?
It's been okay. I mean, you need a break, right? So when it rains as much as it has, we need at least a 40-hour break because we have two major dams in town, and of course they're controlled on how much we can open them up. And of course, then I get people upstream, farmers complaining that I'm flooding out their land, and then of course if I open up the dams too much, you get people downstream complaining that I'm flooding their. So it's a delicate balance, but so far. We're managing. I know the rivers and streams are pretty high all over the state. So right now we're managing. So
just hopefully we get a little bit of break in the rain for at least a while, so the rivers and streams in our area can go back down just a little bit, so we don't have that concern, and we don't have to reach out to FEMA like you had mentioned for funding if the worst case scenario does happen. But Mayor, quickly back to the audit report. Was there anything before we move on? Anything else that we wanted to note on or touch on with that report that's important to know for the citizens there in Mayville?
Just that. I mean, the audit report's an audit report, right? And there's a lot of different things. It is on the city website, so you can go to the city website and review the audit report. And if you got any questions, reach out to me, the city administrator, and we'll be more than glad to answer your questions.
Fantastic. Now, while we are on the topic of financials, a little earlier, Mayor, you had mentioned that the city is, much like many municipalities in our area, is soon to start its budget process. Now, it's still kind of early. I know that a lot of the state is still figuring out some stuff, so it's hard to formulate a lot. But kind of where do you see that process developing here in the next couple of months? Is there key projects that the council will be looking at trying to be able to afford in this budget, or is there anything that we need to keep an eye on as the budget develops?
Well, we're well in the process now. We started last month with our 5-year capital improvement plan. And department heads were identifying projects that need to be put on the plan. And then we made a timeline of everything that has to be done from department heads, giving it to the city treasurer, to the administrator, to the mayor, and all the way through the process. So any major projects right now, I think we borrowed last year, we borrowed over $2 million. So my goal would be not to borrow any more money, but I'm not going to know that until we get couple months into this, but the goal is to have it introduced to the city council the first meeting in November for adoption and approval, and then send it to the county.
Gotcha. Yeah. So usually budget adoption for local budgets around that November timeframe, and usually in municipalities there's a publication, and I believe in Mayville it's the Dodge County Pioneer, where the budget will be published there as well.
15 days before the meeting has to be published by law, and and then you have to have a public hearing.
Yeah, and is that public hearing, does that take place on the same day as budget adoption, or is that a separate meeting entirely?
Typically in Mayville, how we work it, we do the public hearing before the actual council meeting.
Gotcha.
And that gives us, it complies with the law that we give you a 15-day notice and the public hearing, and then we have the council meets and decides if they approve it or not.
Yeah, and it also helps giving the council that time, if they do hear feedback and recommendations, that they can, I'm assuming, call a special meeting, or the finance committee meeting can come together and meet and discuss if there are any changes that need to be made, or amendments that need to be made to the budget before that final adoption date. So it helps streamline that process as we talk about how important that is to keep government moving forward.
Right. So, anybody has any, through the whole process, if anybody has any questions or issues, you should reach out to their alderman or myself to see if we can address them sooner than later, so we can keep the whole process flowing, because we don't want to have a situation like last year when we're already in the middle of December and we haven't had a final budget process.
Yeah. And contact information for local alderpersons and mayor is on the city website, I believe, at MayvilleCity.com.
MayvilleCity.com.
MayvilleCity.com. I believe it's under the government tab. You can find all that information there if you want to reach out to your local representation. To learn more about that budget process or just important dates, I believe there is a calendar on the website as well, so people can keep a close eye on that as well if there's anything coming up that they want to follow closely, and keeping an eye on as well. If there's anything happening there, there's a calendar on the website as well.
Yes.
Fantastic. Now, another thing that we want to highlight here with the mayor of Mayville, Rob Boelk, is a new polling place that was noted here just a couple of weeks ago. Let our listeners know what that entails, Mayor.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be having it at City Hall anymore because it's not ADA compliant with the ramp, and it would cost a lot of money to replace that ramp. So with the new library being built, we're going to have the new polling place at Mayville, or the Ted and Grace Bockuber Library. So will be the new polling place going forward. So make sure you guys mark your calendar that you need to go to the Mayville Library.
Fantastic. Now, there are any special, I don't believe there's any special elections in Mayville happening in August, I believe. I think the next time would be in November would be for the presidential election.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a good thing to know, again, early and often letting people know those changes. So, you don't have people showing up at City Hall, knocking on the front door and wondering how to get in and vote.
Well, I'm sure we'll still get that. but no, I think it's good. I mean, the new library, if you haven't experienced it, the new library is phenomenal. And so I think it's great for everybody.
Yeah, and when did that library officially open up? And I know it's been a long, ongoing project there in Mayville.
Right, I think it was just over a year ago. It was open last summer.
Fantastic, yeah, and I haven't had a chance yet to see it, but it seems, from everything that I've heard and seen pictures of online, it seems like it was a well put together project and building, and it's fantastic to see the city of Mayville get a new facility like that, and where the public can come and have the space to read or do other research and stuff like that.
Yeah, libraries, typically they're not the old libraries of before where you just get a book. Now it's more computer driven. There are a lot of computers there that you can do research. Of course, we do have books, but there's so much more. There's like genealogy.
Yeah.
I usually go down here and do some genealogy once in a while.
Nice.
And there's a wide range of stuff to do at the library. So
fantastic. And again, that's the new polling location. It's not at City Hall for citizens of Mayville, and there is just only one polling place in Mayville. There isn't. It's just at that library. There's no other places.
That's right. Just one polling place. Right.
Fantastic. We only have a few more minutes left here on community comment with our guest this afternoon, Mayville Mayor Rob Boelk. With that time, I just want to spend just a minute or two seen how the work on county issues has gone for you, Mayor? I know that you sort of taken a step back, used to be on the executive committee at the county level while you were stepping away from your time serving as mayor in Mayville. Obviously, being mayor requires a bit more time, so you've stepped away from some of those county committees, but you're still on the highway committee, and that's still a good time commitment. But just how has the time on that highway committee gone? Is there anything of note that we need to highlight, or any projects coming up? But yeah, just how has things gone with the highway committee?
Yeah, so I did take a leadership. I was the first chair of the county board, and I took a leadership role back since I've been mayor. So I decided I was just going to be a supervisor. But they elected me chair of the highway committee, so that's the first time the highway committee has a new chair. I think in close to 40 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. So, and it's a slow process. People probably don't even know this, but when you pay your taxes to the county, you actually pay $0 for roads.
Oh.
We tax zero, and where they get the road funding from is from sales tax. So I never understood that. I always thought that was kind of nonsense, but it is what it is. So we have some projects coming up, a lot of them in the county, all over the county. So we're trying to figure out how we can get 22 miles of road each year
Right.
with the little bit of money that we do have. I think it's almost an impossible task. So I suggested different things, like, maybe we should have our own paving crew back, but that was shot down. And I've talked about other things, how we can get more money or get more roads done with our money we have, but I got to stay tuned.
It's a slow process. I know that it's an important issue for our listeners here. That there are some roads that they have pointed out as needing some TLC, and there is an effort by the county to address these issues. But like most municipalities and most communities, there are limited options to be able to afford all of those projects. But the highway committee, the county, is doing everything within their power to make sure that the roads are getting improved and changes are happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, people don't realize either, we have the second most highway system in the state. I think Ashland County might have more. So we have a lot of roads with a lot less money, and we need to do more. So we somehow have to come up with a plan, and I would talk to the administrator and see what his thoughts are. I mean, the commissioner of the highway is only there at the leisure of the administrator. So if he retires or decides to leave, we need to figure something else out.
On that note, again, like the mayor said, stay tuned on that. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about developments with the highway committee and on the county level. But that will wrap up our time here on Community Comment, again with our guest this afternoon, Mayville Mayor Rob Boelk and District 14 Supervisor representing the Mayville area. Mayor, thank you again so much for coming in this afternoon.
Well, thanks for the invite. I'd be a pleasure to come anytime.
All right, fantastic. And that will do it for today's Community Comment.